Hello, and welcome back to Sovereign Judgment, where suburban authority meets the dangerous possibility that somebody actually read the rules. Today's story begins with one bird feeder, a $50 fine, and an HOA president who believed wildlife could be disciplined through certified mail. By the time this was over, my backyard had an official sanctuary number, 3 government-approved signs, a waiting list of bird watchers, and one extremely angry woman trapped beneath a patio umbrella while a territorial mockingbird questioned her leadership credentials. Tell me where you're watching from in the comments, especially if your neighborhood has someone who treats a clipboard like a constitutional office. All right, let's visit Briarwood Glen. The first notice arrived on a Tuesday morning at 8:17, folded inside a cream-colored envelope thick enough to suggest either a wedding invitation or a minor declaration of war. Across the front, the words Briarwood Glen Community Standards Committee had been embossed in gold lettering that shimmered like a casino loyalty card for people who enjoyed reporting recycling bins. I found it wedged beneath my front door mat beside a grocery flyer and a dead beetle who, in hindsight, had probably received the same warning. The letter said, "Dear Mr. Daniel Mercer, following a visual inspection conducted at 7:42 a.m., your property at 114 Renfield Court has been found in violation of Residential Appearance Standard 8.4, relating to the outdoor distribution of food products in a manner likely to attract nuisance animals. A fine of $50 has been assessed. You are required to remove the offending bird feeding apparatus within 72 hours. The phrase, offending bird feeding apparatus, referred to a cedar feeder my late wife Anna had given me for my 47th birthday. It was 18 inches tall, shaped like a tiny farmhouse, and hung from a steel shepherd's hook beside the kitchen window. The roof was painted dark green. The feeding tray had little white railings. One side leaned slightly because I had assembled it after 2 glasses of birthday wine and an argument with an Allen key. Every morning, I filled it with black oil sunflower seed. Every morning, at least 12 cardinals, finches, chickadees, and 1 blue jay with the emotional stability of a nightclub bouncer arrived for breakfast. I read the notice twice while wearing pizza-patterned socks and holding a mug of coffee that had already gone cold, which was the natural state of every cup I had made since 2009. Then I looked through the kitchen window. A male cardinal stood on the feeder railing, bright red against the winter grass. Anna had loved cardinals. She used to say they looked like Christmas ornaments that had developed opinions. The bird tilted his head at me. "Well," I said, "apparently you're an offending apparatus." He continued eating with the calm indifference of someone who had never paid an HOA assessment. I moved to Briarwood Glen 7 years earlier because Anna had fallen in love with the backyard. The house itself was ordinary. 3 bedrooms, beige siding, a 2-car garage, and a front porch just large enough for 2 chairs and 1 uncomfortable conversation with a neighbor. But the backyard backed onto a narrow strip of woodland. There were mature sweet gum trees, a shallow creek, wild blackberry vines, and enough birds to make sunrise sound like an orchestra tuning up without adult supervision. Anna spent her final year mostly in the sunroom. Cancer had made the rest of her world smaller, but the backyard stayed large. She kept a notebook of every species she saw from the window. Northern cardinal, Carolina wren, tufted titmouse, red-bellied woodpecker. Once, during a spring storm, a rose-breasted grosbeak landed on the feeder, and she became so excited she knocked over her tea and blamed the bird. After she died, feeding them became part habit and part promise. I did it at 7 o'clock every morning. I filled the feeder, warmed my coffee, forgot the coffee, and watched the yard wake up. It was not a dramatic ritual. That was why it mattered. For 23 years, I had worked as a municipal environmental compliance analyst, which was a long way of saying I spent my weekdays reading regulations written by committees that feared punctuation. I knew the difference between a guideline, an ordinance, a covenant, a statute, and an enthusiastic suggestion wearing a tie. But at 8:17 that Tuesday morning, none of that felt useful. The letter still had the HOA's logo at the top. It still demanded $50, and it still wanted me to remove the last birthday gift my wife had given me. At 8:34, the doorbell rang. I opened the front door and met Patricia Wexler, president of the Briarwood Glen Homeowners Association. Patricia was 58, though she carried herself like she had personally defeated time in arbitration. She wore a lavender floral tracksuit that looked like a botanical garden had exploded across a luxury sofa. Her white trainers were spotless. Her silver hair had been sprayed into a helmet, so structurally confident it probably had its own occupancy permit. In her left hand, she held a blue clipboard. In her right, she held a retractable measuring tape. Behind her, parked halfway across my driveway, was a pristine white Lexus SUV, so clean it looked afraid of weather. "Mr. Mercer," she said. Her voice had the tonal quality of a fork being introduced to a garbage disposal. "Mrs. Wexler!" President Wexler is appropriate during an active enforcement matter. Is there another Patricia Wexler involved? Her smile tightened like a jar lid in a hostage situation. "I'm here regarding your violation." She lifted the clipboard and tapped my notice with one manicured fingernail. I got the letter. "Then you understand that the feeder must be removed by Friday at 8 a.m. What nuisance animals has it attracted?" She paused. It was a very small pause, but I had spent 2 decades interviewing contractors who had accidentally discharged paint thinner into storm drains. I knew the pause of a person whose evidence had not arrived with them. "The rule does not require an animal to have already become a nuisance," she said. "It requires only a likelihood." How is likelihood measured? It is determined by the Community Standards Committee. Using what criteria? Experience. Whose? The committee's. With bird feeders? With standards. She said standards, like a priest invoking an ancient sacrament. I leaned against the doorframe. Does Standard 8.4c define birds as nuisance animals? It defines outdoor food distribution. That wasn't my question. Patricia straightened with the posture of a 4-star general, inspecting troops who had personally disappointed her. "Mr. Mercer, Article 8, Section 4, Paragraph C, prohibits any outdoor feeding practice that may attract rodents, vermin, feral animals, or other wildlife deemed undesirable by the board. Has the board deemed cardinals undesirable? The board does not issue species-specific determinations. So no, the feeder must be removed. What about hummingbird feeders? We're not discussing hummingbirds. Suet cages? We're not discussing suet. Native berry bushes." Her jaw moved slightly, like a cash register trying to process a coupon from 1987. "You have 72 hours, she said. "After that, additional fines accrue at $25 per day." She tore a pink duplicate from the clipboard and handed it to me. "Failure to comply may result in legal action, loss of community privileges, and referral to collections." What community privileges? She hesitated again. Briarwood Glen had no pool, no clubhouse, no tennis court, and no shared amenities beyond 2 entrance signs, and a pond nobody was allowed to fish in because the HOA's insurance agent had once seen a hook. "Voting eligibility," she said. "You're threatening to stop me voting against you?" Her expression changed from official concern to personal frost. "I would advise you not to make this adversarial. You find a widower for feeding cardinals. I did not ask about your marital status." "No," I said. "That would have required a form." Her nostrils flared. She turned sharply, marched toward the Lexus, and nearly walked into the brick column beside my driveway because she was reading her own clipboard. She corrected course without acknowledging the column. Then she backed out over the edge of my lawn, crushing one of her own orange inspection flags. At 9:02, she posted in the Briarwood Glen Community Facebook group. Reminder to all homeowners. Unauthorized wildlife feeding creates sanitation risks, lowers property values, and encourages dangerous animal dependency. Compliance protects everyone. The post included a photograph of my bird feeder taken through my side fence. The feeder was circled in red, so was a squirrel. The squirrel did not live at my house. I recognized it because the photograph was a stock image with a watermark still visible across its tail. By noon, 37 people had commented. 4 supported Patricia. 9 asked whether bird baths were illegal. 7 posted photographs of squirrels. One man named Keith asked whether feeding his adult son counted as encouraging dangerous dependency. Patricia deleted Keith's comment and temporarily suspended him from the group. At 2:15 that afternoon, I replied beneath the post. Please provide the board resolution identifying native songbirds as undesirable wildlife under Article 8.4/, along with the inspection record and evidentiary basis for the sanitation finding. My comment disappeared in under 3 minutes. At 2:21, I received an email accusing me of publicly challenging duly appointed leadership. That was when I opened a spreadsheet. I named it feedergate.xlsx because grief may change a man, but it does not eliminate his need for sensible file names. The first tab contained dates. The second contained correspondence. The third contained the bylaws, covenants, enforcement policy, architectural rules, and every board meeting minute available on the HOA portal. The fourth contained photographs of the feeder, the seed storage container, the ground beneath it, and the complete absence of rodents. At 4:40, I found something interesting. The language in Patricia's notice did not match the actual covenant. Article 8.4/prohibited the intentional feeding of feral cats, raccoons, coyotes, or other animals formally designated as community nuisances through a published resolution of the board. It said nothing about bird feeders. It said nothing about songbirds, and the board had never published a nuisance resolution. The phrase outdoor distribution of food products came from a draft enforcement memo discussed 3 years earlier and never adopted. Patricia had turned an abandoned memo into law because it looked official and had bullet points. At 5:12, I emailed her. The cited language does not appear in the recorded covenants or any adopted board resolution. Please withdraw the notice. At 5:19, she replied. The board retains interpretive authority. At 5:26, I wrote, please identify where that authority permits enforcement of language the board did not adopt. At 5:32, she replied, your continued argumentative posture has been documented. I added a new column to the spreadsheet. I called it, Things Patricia Thinks Are Powers. Friday morning arrived. The feeder remained. At 8:03, Patricia's golf cart rolled onto Renfield Court. Apparently, the Lexus had been deemed too subtle. The cart was burgundy, fitted with chrome wheel covers and an amber warning light that flashed even though she was moving at 6 miles per hour. Briarwood Glen Compliance Patrol had been printed across the windscreen in vinyl letters. Patricia drove it like a head of state entering disputed territory. Beside her sat HOA Treasurer Ronald Beach, a narrow man in a golf shirt, the color of uncooked chicken. Patricia stopped at the foot of my driveway. I was standing by the feeder in my robe, pizza socks, and winter coat, refilling the seed tray. She raised her clipboard. Mr. Mercer, it is 8:03. My watch says 8:02. Your watch is irrelevant. It's atomic. The compliance deadline has passed. According to whose watch? She stared at me with the expression of a woman who had prepared for resistance but not timekeeping. Ronald looked at his phone. It's 8:02, he said. Patricia turned toward him so slowly it was like watching a security camera discover betrayal. The association clock is maintained in the office. We don't have an office, Ronald said. The administrative clock. Is that your kitchen clock? That is not relevant. She wrote something on her clipboard with short, violent strokes. You are now subject to a continuing fine of $25 per day. Under the unenacted memo? Under the board's interpretive authority. Has the board voted? The president may act between meetings. Where does it say that? Section 3.2. Section 3.2 says the president chairs meetings. It also establishes executive responsibility. It establishes who holds the gavel. Patricia lowered the clipboard. Do you intend to comply? No. Then you leave me no choice. She said it like a surgeon announcing an amputation, except the patient was a wooden bird feeder and nobody had asked for surgery. What choice is that? You'll find out. She pressed the accelerator. The golf cart lurched forward with the urgency of a mobility scooter fleeing a craft fair. Ronald grabbed the dashboard. The amber light continued flashing until they turned the corner. Over the next 12 days, Patricia found choices. I received 6 violation notices. The original feeder fine rose from $50 to $325. A second fine claimed spilled seed constituted improper organic debris. A third claimed the shepherd's hook was an unapproved exterior structure. A fourth accused me of storing birdseed in a commercial food container, which was a green metal bin with Cardinal Mix printed on the lid. A fifth alleged that bird activity created excessive aerial congestion. That phrase impressed me. It suggested my backyard had become an international airport, and the chickadees were refusing instructions from the tower. The sixth fine was for failure to demonstrate cooperative intent. That one did not cite any section at all. It simply said, "See prior correspondence." Patricia also began conducting dawn inspections. At 6:48 one morning, I saw her photographing my yard through the gap beside my fence. At 6:49, I photographed her photographing my yard. At 6:50, she photographed me, photographing her, photographing my yard. For several seconds, we stood facing each other with our phones raised, like two confused tourists who had accidentally selected one another as landmarks. "You cannot record an official inspection," she said. "I'm on my property. You are obstructing board business. I'm holding coffee." That can still be obstructive. The coffee was cold. Of course it was cold. My coffee had accepted its destiny years before I had accepted mine. That evening, Patricia sent the neighborhood a 7-paragraph email titled, "Protecting Briarwood from Escalating Wildlife Risk." She claimed unnamed residents had reported aggressive congregation behavior. The unnamed resident turned out to be Patricia. The aggressive congregation consisted of 7 finches. She attached another photograph, this time showing 3 birds sitting on my fence. One was a ceramic garden ornament from next door. Things became less funny when the collection notice arrived. It demanded $575, plus a $90 administrative fee, and warned that unpaid assessments could result in a lien. I knew the fines were defective. I knew the board had skipped its required hearing procedure. I knew they could not lawfully treat disputed penalties as regular assessments without additional steps. But knowledge did not stop the letter from making my stomach tighten. Anna and I had paid off the house 11 months before she died. The deed sat in a fireproof box upstairs beside our marriage certificate and her unfinished bird notebook. The idea of Patricia Wexler attaching even a fraudulent lien to that house made something hot rise behind my ribs. At 7:38 that night, I stood at the kitchen counter with the letter in my hand. For one moment, I wanted to march to Patricia's house, slam the notice on her door, and tell her exactly where she could file it. Instead, I made coffee. Then I forgot about it until it was cold. Then I scanned the letter, entered it into the spreadsheet, and read every municipal and county rule related to wildlife feeding. At 11:47, I found the first doorway. Fictional Bellwether County operated a backyard habitat certification program. The program recognized private properties that supplied native food sources, clean water, shelter, and nesting space for local wildlife. Certified properties were encouraged to maintain regulated feeding stations as part of conservation and public education. The certification itself did not automatically override HOA covenants, but another county ordinance did. Bellwether Environmental Code 14-218 prohibited private associations from enforcing rules that materially interfered with officially registered pollinator gardens, migratory bird habitats, or county-approved wildlife conservation sites, provided the site met maintenance and sanitation standards. I read the section 4 times. Then I checked the effective date, then the amendments, then the definitions, then the legal notes. The ordinance had been adopted 9 months earlier after a local association tried to force a retired science teacher to remove a monarch garden. The final language was broad, very broad, broad enough to drive Patricia's golf cart through sideways. There was one problem. Certification was not a form you downloaded and taped to the feeder. It required an inspection, a habitat plan, native plant coverage, water management, species documentation, and written approval from a licensed wildlife specialist. That was how I met Dr. Milton "Milt" Avery. Milt worked for the County Conservation Extension Office. He was 64, 6'4", and shaped like a vending machine that had developed strong opinions about wetlands. His beard began somewhere near his cheekbones and descended in a gray avalanche onto a canvas vest covered in pockets. When I arrived at his office, he was using a letter opener to retrieve a pickle from a jar. He looked at my folder. Then he looked at me. HOA? Yes. Bird feeder? Yes. President with a clipboard? Blue clipboard. He nodded. They're always blue. He speared the pickle, ate half of it, and pointed toward a chair. Tell me everything. I explained the feeder, the fines, the invented rule, Patricia's dawn surveillance, and the lien threat. Milt listened without interrupting. When I finished, he leaned back and made a sound like an old barn door considering retirement. I had one of these, he said. An HOA president? Dolores Caps. Tried to find me because my rain barrel was visually suggestive of industrial storage. It held 50 gallons and had a sunflower painted on it. What happened? I got it registered as emergency drought infrastructure. Did that work? She had to include it in the neighborhood resilience brochure. I liked Milt immediately. He flipped through my photographs. You've already got mature canopy, brush cover, a creek corridor, and at least 11 documented native species. 12 if the ceramic bird counts. It does not. Patricia counted it. That tracks. He studied the feeder. Ground beneath it is clean. I rake every evening. Seed in sealed storage? Yes. Water source? Bird bath and creek. Native flowers? Some. How much is some? Anna planted coneflower, bee balm, black-eyed Susan, serviceberry, and 2 elderberry bushes. Milt stopped turning pages. Your wife knew what she was doing. She usually did. He gave me a quiet nod. Then he closed the folder. Daniel, you don't need to defend a bird feeder. I don't? No. You need to certify the entire yard. He said it with the calm enthusiasm of a man suggesting we replace a doorbell, not convert 11,000 square feet of suburban property into protected wildlife habitat. What would that involve? A site assessment, habitat map, 3 additional native plant zones, a recirculating water feature, 2 nesting boxes, 1 bat house, feeding station controls, signage, and documentation. How long? If the site is ready, 2 weeks. And it would qualify under Ordinance 14-218? Milt smiled. It was not a large smile. It was the smile of a mechanic who had just discovered the rattling noise was covered by warranty. Mr. Mercer, once the county certifies this property, Patricia Wexler can dislike your feeder, your flowers, your nesting boxes, and every bird within a 12-mile radius. He tapped the folder. But she cannot interfere with them. I would have followed that man into a marsh at midnight. We began the next morning. Milt inspected the property at 9 o'clock. He walked the perimeter with a tablet, binoculars, and a measuring wheel that squeaked every 4th rotation like a mouse objecting to progress. He identified 19 bird species in 90 minutes. He found 2 squirrel nests, a rabbit burrow, evidence of fox movement along the creek, and a hollow tree cavity suitable for screech owls. Any concern about nuisance animals? I asked. Everything is a nuisance to someone, he said. My brother considers raisins a nuisance. At 9:43, Patricia arrived in the compliance golf cart. She stopped at the curb and stared at Milt, who was kneeling beside the blackberry vines examining tracks. Mr. Mercer, she called. Who is that? Dr. Avery. In what capacity? Doctor. Milt looked over his shoulder. Wildlife specialist, he said. Patricia's eyebrows rose like 2 drawbridges receiving an emergency signal. This property is under an active enforcement order. Milt stood. He unfolded slowly, like a deck chair designed for bears. Is it contagious? He asked. I'm sorry? The order. Do I need gloves? Patricia tightened her grip on the clipboard. I am Patricia Wexler, president of the Briarwood Glen Homeowners Association. Milt Avery, County Conservation Extension. Her confidence flickered. Only briefly. Then it returned wearing armor. This homeowner is maintaining an unauthorized animal feeding installation. Milt looked at the feeder, then at the cardinal on it, then back at Patricia. That little house? It is not a house. It is an apparatus. What happens if I knock? This is not humorous. You're right. The porch is too small. Patricia inhaled through her nose. Article 8, Section 4, Paragraph C, prohibits the outdoor distribution of food products in a manner likely to attract undesirable wildlife. Milt held out one enormous hand. Can I see the recorded covenant? Patricia did not give him the clipboard. The board has interpretive authority. Can I see the adopted nuisance species resolution? The board does not need to publish every internal determination. County law says you do, if you're restricting protected habitat practices. This is not a protected habitat. Not yet. The words landed between us. Patricia looked at me, then at Milt, then at the yard. Her face tightened like a woman watching someone install a second checkout lane after she had already chosen the first. What does that mean? She asked. It means I'm assessing the property for county habitat certification. You cannot do that without association approval. Show me the county code that says I need it. This is a private community. It's also inside Bellwether County. The covenants take precedence, not over environmental ordinance. That is your interpretation. No, Milt said. That's why they printed it in the code book. Patricia turned to me. Any modification to landscaping requires architectural review. I haven't modified anything. You intend to. Maybe. You are hereby instructed to submit plans before undertaking any work. Does that include county-protected habitat features? All exterior work. Even work the county says you can't prohibit. All work. Milt glanced at me. Is she always this helpful? Usually before breakfast. Patricia wrote furiously on her clipboard. I am issuing a stop work notice. No work has started, I said. Then you are preemptively stopped. From what? Whatever this becomes. Milt leaned toward me. I want that sentence on a t-shirt. Patricia tore off a pink sheet, clipped it to my fence, took 3 photographs, and drove away. The warning light flashed all the way down the street. Milt watched her go. She's going to make this much easier than it needs to be, he said. How? People like that think paperwork is a weapon. He picked up his measuring wheel. They never consider that somebody else may have more ammunition. For 6 days, I did nothing visible. That was important. I obtained a written legal opinion from County Council, confirming that certified habitat features were protected under Ordinance 14-218. I submitted the site plan. I received written approval for 2 nesting boxes, 1 bat house, a shallow recirculating pond, native shrubs, a pollinator strip, a compost-free feeding zone, and 3 official signs. I obtained a minor landscape permit. I obtained a drainage clearance. I obtained utility marking. I paid $186 in application and inspection fees. Every document went into feedergate.xlsx. By the end, the workbook had 11 tabs and enough cross-references to frighten a junior auditor. Milt conducted the sanitation review. A county biologist named Lena Torres verified the native plant list. Lena was 5'2", wore red-framed glasses, and moved through government forms like a caffeinated librarian clearing a building during a fire drill. She examined the HOA notices. This fine says excessive aerial congestion, she said. Yes. Did an aircraft strike occur? 2 chickadees disagreed over a sunflower seed. She removed her glasses. I'm going to need a copy of this for training. On Monday, the county issued provisional approval. On Tuesday, the final permit cleared. On Wednesday at 6:30 a.m., 3 trucks entered Briarwood Glen. The first carried native plants. The second carried landscaping stone, a preformed pond liner, cedar nesting boxes, steel posts, and a wooden information kiosk. The third belonged to Salvatore Big Sal Moretti, a licensed landscape contractor recommended by Milt. Big Sal had shoulders like a chest freezer and a mustache so broad it appeared to arrive several seconds before the rest of his face. His company logo showed a smiling shovel wearing work boots. He climbed out of the truck holding a breakfast burrito the size of a rolled newspaper. Where's Clipboard Napoleon? He asked. Probably awake. Good. I hate wasting an entrance. At 6:42, the first pallet touched my driveway. At 6:44, Patricia's golf cart came around the corner at maximum speed. The amber light flashed. The horn emitted a series of tiny electronic beeps that sounded like a microwave, objecting to authority. She braked beside the first truck. What is happening? Sal took another bite of burrito. Landscaping. Who authorized this? He pointed at me. Patricia swung toward me. I issued a stop work order. You issued a pink sheet before work existed. It remains binding. No, it doesn't. She stepped out of the cart wearing khaki trousers ironed so sharply they could have opened mail. Her navy polo bore the HOA logo over her heart, like a military decoration she had personally awarded herself. The blue clipboard was tucked beneath one arm. Cease all activity immediately, she announced. None of the workers stopped. A compact excavator rolled down the trailer ramp behind her, with a mechanical rumble like a refrigerator learning to threaten people. Patricia raised both hands. I said stop, Sal swallowed. Lady, unless you're the county inspector or the person who signed my check, you're currently background noise. I am the president of this association. Congratulations. This project has no approval. I handed her a folder. It has county approval. She did not take it. The HOA supersedes county landscaping recommendations. It's not a recommendation. I opened the folder and showed her the certification documents, site plan, permits, drainage approval, legal opinion, and ordinance. Her eyes moved across the first page, then the second, then back to the first. This is provisional. The final certificate is on page 4. She turned to page 4. This cannot be valid. It has a seal. Seals can be decorative. There's a verification number. Numbers can be assigned improperly. There's a phone number. Departments make mistakes. Sal leaned toward one of his workers. She's wrestling the concept of government in real time. Patricia snapped the folder closed. You have still violated the architectural guidelines. Ordinance 14-218 preempts any private restriction that materially interferes with a certified habitat. That is not what it says. It's highlighted. You highlighted it. The county attorney highlighted it. County attorneys are not experts on our covenants. Who is? The board. Who wrote the stop work order? I did. Who approved it? I did. Who reviewed the appeal? I did. Patricia's mouth tightened. That is executive efficiency. That is 3 Patricias in one tracksuit. Behind us, Sal made a choking sound into his burrito. Patricia turned toward the workers. Anyone entering this property may be held personally liable. Sal reached into his truck, retrieved a laminated card, and held it out. Permit, insurance, contractor license, county authorization, emergency contact, and a coupon for 15% off mulch. I do not want mulch. Nobody does until they need it. She spun toward the compact excavator. The operator had begun removing a rectangle of turf for the shallow pond. You are damaging HOA-controlled visual assets. It's his grass, Sal said. It contributes to collective appearance. So does your golf cart. But we're all surviving. At 6:58, Patricia called the police. At 7:11, Officer Benjamin Crow arrived. Officer Crow had been to Briarwood Glen 4 times in the previous month. Twice for parking disputes. Once because Patricia claimed a teenager's basketball hoop was positioned aggressively. Once because Ronald Beach accidentally locked himself inside the decorative pond enclosure. Crow stepped from his patrol car with the expression of a man whose soul had already completed a 12-hour shift. He was 40-something, broad through the middle, and carried a paper cup that looked as tired as he did. Patricia intercepted him at the curb. Officer, these men are trespassing and conducting unauthorized excavation. Crow looked at the trucks, then at me, then at Sal, then at the county permits displayed on a folding table. Whose property? Mr. Mercer's, technically. Technically. The association maintains architectural control. Are the workers here with Mr. Mercer's permission? Yes, but then they're not trespassing. They are violating a stop work order. City order? Association order. Is that criminal? It is enforceable. By police? It should be. Crow stared at her with all the emotional movement of a parking meter. Ma'am, do you have evidence of a crime? They are digging. People dig. They are installing wildlife infrastructure. Crow looked toward the pond liner. Is the wildlife operating heavy machinery? This is serious. Milt arrived carrying a county vehicle placard and 3 official habitat signs. Morning, Ben? Crow sighed. Morning, Milt? Patricia pointed at him. This man has encouraged the violation. Milt handed Crow the county file. Crow read the first page, then the ordinance, then the permit. He gave the papers back. This is authorized, not by the HOA. The county outranks your landscaping committee. We are not a landscaping committee. Crow looked at the golf cart, the clipboard, the matching polo, and the laminated sign Patricia had placed on the bonnet reading, Active Compliance Zone. What are you then? The governing association. For this street? For the community. But not the county. Patricia's cheeks darkened. The association intends to pursue civil enforcement. That's your option. I want the work stopped until our attorney reviews it. Crow took a sip from his cup. I can't stop lawful work because your attorney hasn't read something. She is creating a dangerous wildlife attraction. Crow looked at me. What wildlife? Mostly finches. He looked back at Patricia. So the emergency is birds. The emergency is non-compliance. Crow nodded once. Then call a meeting. He returned to his patrol car. Patricia followed him 3 steps. You're leaving. Yes. What am I supposed to do? Stop standing behind the excavator. She looked over her shoulder. The excavator operator waited patiently while she occupied the exact square of ground he needed. Crow opened his car door. Today's situation is legal gardening with emotional complications. Then he left. The installation took 2 days. By Thursday evening, my backyard had changed. The original feeder remained beside the kitchen window. 20 feet away stood a cedar feeding station with a roofed seed storage cabinet, drainage tray, and 4 regulated feeders mounted at different heights. The pond was 12 feet long, 4 feet wide, and 18 inches deep at the center, lined with smooth river stone and fitted with a quiet solar pump. Sal built a small gravel path around it. Lena installed native sedge, swamp milkweed, cardinal flower, inkberry, winterberry, and spicebush. 2 nesting boxes went onto steel poles along the woodland edge. A bat house rose beside the creek. A brush shelter sat beneath the sweet gum trees. Near the gate, Milt installed the official sign, Bellwether County Certified Backyard Wildlife Sanctuary Site, number BWC 4471, Protected Habitat Area. Below that was a second sign listing the ordinance number. Below that was a third sign, reading, Please do not enter habitat zones without property owner or county authorization. Milt stood beside the signs with his hands on his hips. Beautiful, he said. It's 3 signs. I like clarity. Big Sal wiped his mustache. I like that one says do not enter. Why? Because she's going to enter. I looked toward Patricia's house. She's been warned. Sal smiled. Men like us see a warning sign and think, best stay out. People like her see a warning sign and think, finally, a door with my name on it. The certification became final at 4:12 Friday afternoon. At 4:19, I emailed Patricia, the full board, the management company, and the HOA attorney. The message contained the certificate, permits, legal opinion, ordinance, site plan, and notice that all prior enforcement actions interfered with protected conservation activity. I requested immediate withdrawal of the fines. At 4:37, the HOA attorney replied to everyone. The attorney's name was Martin Bell. His email contained only 3 sentences. Patricia, do not enter Mr. Mercer's property. Do not take any further enforcement action until we speak. At 4:43, Patricia replied to everyone. The President retains inspection authority under Article 5 to 7. At 4:44, Martin Bell answered, not in this situation. At 4:51, Patricia posted in the community Facebook group, unapproved commercial wildlife facility, installed without community consent. She accused me of operating an animal attraction in a residential zone. She claimed the signs lowered property values. She claimed the pond presented a drowning risk to children, pets, elderly residents, and postal workers. The pond was 18 inches deep and located behind a locked gate. She announced that the board would conduct an emergency inspection Saturday at 10 a.m. At 5:02, Martin Bell commented, "This inspection is not authorized." Patricia deleted his comment. At 5:08, she suspended the HOA attorney from the Facebook group. Saturday morning was clear, bright, and cold. At 9:45, Milt arrived. At 9:48, Lena arrived. At 9:52, Sal parked across the street with coffee and a paper bag containing 6 donuts. At 9:55, Ronald Beach arrived on foot. He looked pale. "I told her not to do this," he said. "Is she coming?" I asked. He looked toward the corner. The amber light appeared first. Patricia's golf cart rounded onto Renfield Court at 9:58. Behind it came 2 board members in the Lexus. Behind them came 7 neighbors carrying phones. Behind them came Keith, who had been readmitted to the Facebook group long enough to learn the inspection time before Patricia suspended him again. Patricia stopped in front of my house. She wore a white windbreaker, navy slacks, gardening gloves, protective shoe covers, and a fluorescent vest labeled HOA Inspector. The outfit made her look like an emergency crossing guard deployed to a yacht club. A body camera was clipped to her vest. The blue clipboard was secured to her wrist with a lanyard. She approached my gate. I stood on the other side. "Good morning, Patricia." "President Wexler, Martin told you not to come. The board has independent inspection rights. Your own attorney told you not to enter. He was speaking without the benefit of my legal interpretation. He is the legal interpretation. She lifted the clipboard. Article 5, Section 7, Paragraph B, grants the association reasonable access to inspect exterior conditions following notice. County Ordinance 14-218 prohibits interference with a certified habitat. This is not interference. What is it? A compliance inspection. For what? To identify violations. Of what? The standards. Which standards? All applicable standards. Name one. She drew herself up like a parade float discovering a hill. Mr. Mercer, I am not required to litigate this matter at the gate. You're not required to enter, either. I have notified you. I'm denying permission. You cannot deny reasonable inspection. The county sign says you need owner or county authorization. I am exercising association authority. That's neither. She reached for the latch. Patricia, Milt said from behind me, do not enter the marked habitat zones. I have heard your opinion. It's not an opinion. Lena held up the ordinance. Entering after the owner denies consent may constitute unlawful interference with a protected site. Patricia looked around at the gathered neighbors. Too many phones were recording. Too many people were watching. She had announced the inspection publicly. She had arrived in a vest. She had brought the clipboard. Turning around would mean admitting the signs applied to her. Patricia Wexler would sooner have apologized to a hedge. I am entering solely in my official capacity, she said. For the record, I replied, you do not have permission. For the record, your objection is noted and overruled. You can't overrule the property owner. I just did. She opened the gate. That was her choice. I stepped aside. Patricia marched down the gravel path, followed by Ronald and board member Cynthia Dale. The rest of us remained near the gate. The sanctuary was peaceful. Finches moved through the serviceberry branches. A cardinal sat on the original feeder. The pond pump made a soft trickling sound. For almost 30 seconds, Patricia seemed disappointed by the lack of immediate catastrophe. She photographed the nesting boxes. She measured the path. She crouched beside the pond and extended her tape measure. 18 3/4 inches, she announced. The center is 18, Sal said. The edge contour exceeds the submitted representation. The liner slopes. Then the plan was inaccurate. She wrote something down. A mockingbird landed on the information kiosk behind her. Patricia turned. The mockingbird had been visiting for 3 days. Milt had identified it as a territorial adult male. Sal had named it Kevin. Kevin watched Patricia with the hard, unblinking suspicion of a nightclub manager who had already been warned about her group. Patricia waved one hand. Shoo. Kevin did not shoo. She waved the clipboard. Go. Kevin opened his wings. Milt spoke calmly. Don't wave things at him. He is obstructing the inspection. He's a bird. He is behaving aggressively. He's sitting. Patricia took one step toward the kiosk. Kevin flew to the bathouse pole. She continued down the path. Kevin followed. He landed on the nesting box roof. Patricia stopped. Kevin stopped. She moved. Kevin moved. It was less a pursuit than an audit conducted from above. Patricia pointed at the feeding station. That structure exceeds the permitted feeder dimensions. It is on the approved plan, I said. The HOA did not approve it. The county did. I am documenting the violation. She approached the feeding station. The sign beside it read, Authorized habitat personnel only. Do not open that cabinet, I said. I need to inspect the contents. You do not have permission. I have already explained my authority. She opened the cabinet. Inside were 4 sealed metal seed bins, each labeled by feed type. Patricia lifted one. Kevin swooped. He did not touch her. He passed over her head, close enough to disturb her sprayed hair. Patricia made a sound that was half scream and half noise a kettle might make after learning about taxes. She dropped the lid. It clanged against the cabinet. A flock of mourning doves burst from the ground cover. Cynthia Dale shrieked. Ronald stepped backward into the edge of the pond and filled one shoe with water. Patricia spun with the clipboard raised. Kevin swooped again. "Stop that bird!" she shouted. Nobody moved. "How?" Sal asked. "Do you want us to issue a memo?" Kevin landed on the feeder roof. Patricia backed away. "You have trained it. I have not trained the mockingbird. It is targeting me. You waved a clipboard at it. I was performing an inspection. Kevin doesn't recognize your jurisdiction. That bird has a name? Unofficially. Kevin flew toward her again. Patricia ducked. Her clipboard struck the brim of her own visor, snapping it downward over her eyes. Blinded, she stumbled sideways onto the lower gravel path. Her shoe covers slid. She grabbed the patio umbrella for balance. The umbrella opened. Nobody touched it. Her hand caught the release lever as she fell against the pole. The navy canopy exploded above her like a parachute deployed inside a broom cupboard. Patricia screamed and dropped to her knees beneath it. Kevin landed on top. From outside, all we could see were Patricia's white trainers protruding beneath the umbrella and the blue clipboard sliding slowly across the gravel. "Get it off," she yelled. "The bird or the umbrella?" I asked. "Both." Sal took out his phone. "I don't think the umbrella's certified." Patricia crawled from beneath the canopy. Kevin hopped along the top. She rose, hair partially flattened, visor crooked, fluorescent vest twisted sideways. Her face had progressed beyond anger, into the purple, vibrating territory usually reserved for pressure cookers. "This site is unsafe," she shouted. She pointed directly at me. "You knowingly created a hazardous condition to attack board officials. The bird lives here. You encouraged it." "With what?" "This entire environment." Milt folded his arms. "That is generally how habitat works." Patricia seized her clipboard. "I am ordering immediate removal of every feeder, nesting structure, water feature, sign, shrub, and wildlife-related installation on this property." Cynthia stared at her. "Patricia, maybe we should leave." "No," the lawyer said. "I am the president. You suspended the lawyer from Facebook. He was undermining enforcement." Ronald removed his wet shoe and poured pond water onto the path. "Patricia, this is getting bad. This is getting documented." She held up the clipboard. "I am assessing an emergency fine of $5,000. "You can't," Ronald said. "I can. Our maximum single fine is $500. Emergency authority." "There is no emergency authority." "There is now." The crowd went quiet. Even Kevin seemed interested. Patricia began writing. $5,000 for deliberate creation of a hostile wildlife environment, obstruction of official inspection, construction without architectural approval, endangerment of board representatives, and— "Patricia," I said. She looked up. "Your body camera is recording." Her hand stopped. The small red light on her vest blinked. "You just invented emergency authority on camera," I said. "I clarified existing authority. Ronald said it doesn't exist." Ronald is confused. "I'm the treasurer," Ronald said. "You're wet." "That doesn't make me confused." Patricia pointed the pen at him. "You are interfering with an executive action." Ronald looked toward the neighbors, then at the phones, then at her body camera. "I resign," he said. "What?" "From the board. You cannot resign during an active inspection. Watch me." He picked up his shoe and walked barefoot toward the gate. Cynthia followed. "I resign too." Patricia's jaw dropped. "You cannot both resign." Cynthia kept walking. "I just did." Patricia stood alone beside the pond, clutching the clipboard like a captain whose crew had escaped in the lifeboats and taken the snacks. That was when Officer Crow arrived. Someone had called him after Patricia entered the property. He walked through the gate and surveyed the scene. Patricia's open umbrella lay across the path. Ronald stood barefoot near the curb. Cynthia was removing her HOA badge. 7 neighbors were filming. Kevin sat on the feeder. Patricia pointed toward me. "Officer, I need this property shut down." Crow looked at the sanctuary signs. "Why?" "I was attacked." "By whom?" "The Mockingbird." Crow looked at Kevin. Kevin looked at Crow. "Did it touch you?" "It dive-bombed me." Milt stepped forward. She approached a nesting area after multiple warnings, opened a restricted feed cabinet, and waved a clipboard at a territorial bird. It was an official clipboard. Crow closed his eyes for 1 second. When he opened them, he looked older. "Mrs. Wexler, were you told not to enter?" "I had inspection authority." "That wasn't my question. I was told Mr. Mercer objected." "Were you warned by the county?" "I disagreed with their interpretation." "Were you told by your attorney not to enter?" "Mr. Bell does not control board operations." "Did you enter anyway?" "I conducted a lawful inspection." Crow looked at my phone. "Do you have it recorded?" "From the gate onward." Milt raised his tablet. "So do I." Lena raised hers. "Me too." Sal held up his phone. I got the umbrella in slow motion. Crow looked back at Patricia. What do you want me to do? Arrest him for reckless endangerment. With a bird? With the environment. That is not a charge. Then trespassing. He lives here. Interference. With what? My inspection. The inspection everyone told you not to perform? Patricia's voice rose like a violin being tuned by an angry raccoon. I am the elected president of this community. Crow nodded. And today, you entered private property after the owner denied consent, ignored a county warning, opened a restricted habitat cabinet, invented a $5,000 fine, and got scared by a bird. I was not scared, Kevin chirped. Patricia flinched. Crow looked at him, then at her. The bird disagrees. 2 county enforcement officers arrived at 10:24. Lena had contacted them when Patricia entered. They reviewed the videos, the certification, the signs, and Patricia's body camera footage. Patricia refused to surrender the camera until one officer explained that withholding relevant evidence after announcing a formal enforcement action could become a separate issue. She handed it over. The footage contained everything: her entry after repeated warnings, her attempt to inspect sealed habitat equipment, her order to remove protected features, her invention of emergency authority, her $5,000 fine, her statement that the board did not need the attorney's approval. By Monday morning, Bellwether County issued a formal notice of interference against the HOA. By Monday afternoon, Martin Bell resigned as association counsel. His resignation letter was 3 pages long. The sentence everyone remembered was, "The greatest immediate legal threat to Briarwood Glen is not Mr. Mercer's bird feeder." The management company froze enforcement activity. The HOA's insurer requested every violation notice Patricia had issued during the previous 2 years. That was when the real damage emerged. Patricia had used the same unpublished draft memo against 14 homeowners. She had fined one resident for leaving a squirrel-proof bin beside a shed. She had fined another for a hummingbird feeder. She had fined an 81-year-old woman named Gloria Finch $900 because ducks occasionally crossed her lawn from the community pond. Gloria's surname made that one feel personal. The county voided my fines. Then the management company reviewed the rest. Within 3 weeks, $18,450 in improper penalties had to be refunded or credited to residents. The association had only $11,200 in operating reserves. A special meeting was scheduled for February 12 at 7 p.m. in the library basement. 114 homeowners attended. The room held 80 chairs. People stood along the walls, sat on windowsills, and leaned against shelves labeled Local History. Patricia arrived in a burgundy blazer with gold buttons and carried the blue clipboard. She attempted to call the meeting to order. Nobody stopped talking. She struck the gavel. The head flew off. It bounced once across the table and rolled beneath Gloria Finch's chair. Gloria picked it up. "I believe this belongs to your interpretive authority," she said. The recall vote passed 103-7. 2 of the 7 votes supporting Patricia were submitted by homeowners, who later claimed they had misunderstood the ballot. One was Patricia's. Nobody could explain the other 4. Ronald Beach was elected interim treasurer again after promising never to attend another wildlife inspection. Gloria Finch became president. Her entire inaugural speech was 11 words: pay the bills, follow the law, and leave people's gardens alone. The room applauded for nearly a minute. The HOA adopted a new enforcement policy, requiring written legal review before any lien threat. Board members were prohibited from conducting solo inspections. All rules had to cite an actual recorded covenant. The compliance golf cart was sold to a retirement village 20 miles away, where the amber light was removed, and the rear basket was repurposed to carry bingo supplies. Patricia resigned from every committee. She listed her house in March. Before moving, she installed a plastic owl on her roof to discourage birds. A mockingbird began sitting on it within 48 hours. The sanctuary remained. By spring, the coneflowers returned. Children from 3 houses down began stopping at the gate to check the species board. Milt hosted a Saturday bird count workshop in the yard. Big Sal donated a bench beside the pond with a brass plaque reading, "For quiet observation and loud legal compliance." Gloria stopped by every Tuesday with mealworms for the bluebirds. Even Ronald visited, though he refused to stand within 6 feet of the pond. The original cedar feeder still hangs beside my kitchen window. It leans slightly. The paint is fading. Every morning at 7 o'clock, I fill it with sunflower seed. Then I make coffee. Then I forget the coffee. And sometimes, just after sunrise, a male cardinal lands on the white railing and looks through the glass. The HOA fined me $50 for feeding him. By the end, they had paid thousands in refunds, lost their president, rewritten their rules, sold their golf cart, and helped turn my backyard into Bellwether County Certified Wildlife Sanctuary, BWC 4471. Patricia wanted the feeder gone. Instead, the government gave it a registration number. So tell me in the comments, what is the most ridiculous rule an HOA or neighbor has ever tried to enforce against you? Like the video, subscribe, and join us again at Sovereign Judgment, where some people bring a clipboard to a bird fight and discover the bird has county protection. Revenge may be a dish best served cold, but judgment, apparently, comes with sunflower seeds.